Do you need golden eagles to assist with the grind? With today's sponsor, Free GE for War Thunder, you can do so by completing simple tasks. And if you sign up with my promo code EPGEK, you will get 10 GE for signing up. But most importantly, you will be able to fund my future giveaways, where I will be able to hand out 5 to 10,000 golden eagles, depending on how much you guys have accumulated. Welcome back, and there it is, the official FOX-3 devblog announcing the death of Araby and me quitting YouTube. But before I quit YouTube, I'm gonna, of course, give you the deets on this update. And obviously, I'm joking, I'm not going anywhere. The actual devblog here is kind of straightforward. There's really not much info in there that we don't already know. They're talking about the fact that you don't have to illuminate your target anymore, like with semi-active radar homing. And you can use it in the defensive posture, you can shoot them across the map, they are medium range. Yada yada yada. There is not really that much going on in this devblog. Other than the pictures, there are some pictures here which tell more than they let on. They are kind of like Easter eggs, so to speak. The small things, but this is just gonna be me yapping about this devblog. So this first picture here is, well, you might say, that looks like an F-15 shooting an MRAM. And you'd be correct, but the F-15A that I'm flying on the screen right here doesn't actually carry MRAMs. So this is very likely to be the F-15C. Now the F-15C is a good bit heavier than the F-15A, but we already know what this flight model is going to be like, because the Japanese F-15 that we have in the game right now is basically an F-15C. Now it doesn't have the upgraded radar, and of course it doesn't have the FOX-3 package, but the flight model should be very similar, so we know exactly how that is going to pan out. And yes, it is a good bit worse in the dogfight, I say, as I outturn an F-15A with 2 fuel tanks on, but you know, that is besides the point. He just made a bit of a mistake. And this picture here shows it as well, and it's a little bit more clear. You can see the rings in the exhaust. Looks like the smoke is still the same, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think it can use a little bit of work. But I imagine that the Gaijin team right now is trying to focus on trying to not make this a game-breaking addition, in the sense that the missile is either going to be absolutely unusable and it will never hit anything, or it's going to be super broken and it's going to hit everything regardless of what you do. That's at least what I'm going to be expecting for the first 1 to 2 weeks. But you know, I'd love to be wrong. So please, let me be wrong. And then we have the last picture as well. We have the Su-27. And the Su-27S that we have in the game right now also does not carry R-77s. This one is shooting an R-77 and it's carrying 6 of them. And it's likely to be the Su-27 SM. Now I've been told that the Su-27 SM has the same radar as the Su-27S that we have in the game. But then when I go to Wikipedia, it says slightly improved radar, so I'm not entirely sure what to believe here. But I'm sure someone in the comments will have classified documents and is ready to expose the Russian military just like that. And then we have the last bit of information where they talk about the first medium-range missiles with active radar homing seekers will be the French Mika, the Chinese PL-12, the American AIM-120, the Russian R-77, the Japanese AIM-4, the Israeli Derby, and the South African R-Darter. Now the main issue here is that we don't know how these missiles are going to be modeled. Now I'm completely fine with the missiles behaving a little bit differently between each nation, but I just really hope they keep it balanced, because right now when we looked at the dev server event, the AIM-120s were AIM-120As and most of the missiles acted quite closely to each other, which I think was a good thing, because when I see something like the Mika missile, is going to be vastly superior to something like the AIM-120A. And then we have the AIM-4 in this list, which is essentially an AIM-120C. So I kind of hope that they kind of balance this and they don't make one nation with a super broken missile. But of course this is Gaijin, and we know that they like to just give one nation super overpowered stuff so that everyone flocks to it and starts buying those planes. But for now, I can't really say anything. This is the news. This is really all I can tell you. I'm just mostly excited for the fact that I can start using these missiles in a defensive posture. Not so much that I can sling them off at the start of the match. Now it of course depends on how many you can carry. But if you can carry 4, I wouldn't be slinging all that many of these missiles at the start of the match. People are going to adapt to it. People are going to learn how to defeat these things very reliably. As long as multipathing of course doesn't get changed. And I think it's going to be a waste of missiles, and being able to shoot at someone and then turn around, and if they are flying at you from like a medium to high altitude, you can actually go defensive, you can defeat that missile, and your missile will just do its own thing and fly directly into that cockpit, which is the thing that I'm looking forward to most of all. Now, I was hoping that the F-15A was going to get MRAMs and then it can finally get moved up, because at 12.3 that thing is still, it is way too low for BR. 11.3s have no chance against the F-15A. It is way too good. And people tell me that I'm coping or that I'm like an anti-American hater or whatever. But what's in it for me? I have to play all of these planes. I have to make content on all of them. Or I don't really have to, but I will. So it's in my best interest that these planes are actually somewhat balanced, so that when I have to inevitably fly these things, I don't only have a good experience in one plane and then get clubbed to hell in the other 5. So I just want a somewhat balanced experience. But, you know, I shouldn't have to clarify that anymore. I think we can all agree that the F-15 is at least the best 12.3. And it's at least on par with a lot of the 12.7s that we already have. So I think it's just an absolute joke. But I don't want to get too hung up on that. I mainly just... I mean, there's really not much to talk about here. The FOX-3 missiles are very clear in what they are. We'll have to see how they get implemented. I'm mostly curious to see how the gameplay evolves, because people will of course start learning how to defeat these things, and they might actually start employing things like long-range notching. They might actually start using multi-patting, because now we have the F-14 doing it, and the Phoenix is of course not all that maneuverable, but it does have a decent amount of splash range. So when they do actually hit around you, or they hit like a tree next to you, you sometimes actually just blow up. Now these missiles should have a little bit less of a warhead. Now they are going to be harder to defeat kinetically of course, because they will pull a bit harder. But if you are used to something like an R-27ER, you should be completely fine. Now for the last part of this video, I want to talk about something. Yes, I promised an IRCCM flaring guide, and I've been kind of holding it off on the back burner. Well, I'm gonna break it to you, I've been feeling like absolute dog shit, and it's been going a bit better now, so I've picked it back up. We're about 70% done. Expect it soon. I just don't want it to be buried by patch content, so I might hold off the launch for a little bit, because I do want to make sure that people actually see it, because the way that you have to flare these things requires a bit of brain power and a bit of know-how, and right now on YouTube there really is nothing that covers this stuff, or at least not properly. But stay tuned for that. Thank you for your patience, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.